to get back to what they will be calling a new normal.
That's correct. I mean, I don't want to. I mean, quite frankly, I don't want to go back to normal. I want to go back to something better because the normal wasn't working, which is what the situation we're in right now. If normal was working, if our economy was this strong, why are we talking about our economy collapsing if we're going to be shut down for 3 months? Then clearly our economy wasn't that strong. That if you're talking about millionaires and multi-millionaires and billionaires getting small business loans, like in the case of Shake Shack, and that they were shamed online and they finally returned the $10 million check, I mean, you're talking about a $350 billion small business loan package, and they're like, yeah, we're all out of money. It's like, what are you talking about? I have a neighbor of mine. He's a small business. He got $0 from it. I'm a small business. I got $0 for that, you know. And multiple other friends who have businesses, they're like, we got $0 from that business loan. So where did all the money go? It went to the people who had politicians in their pockets to cut them the check so they can do the things that they want to do and ignored small businesses like myself, right? So I don't want to go back to that normal. Sorry?
Yeah.
The people who had connection with the banks who were doing the loans, their clients were the ones. And we don't have relationships with banks like that. And so, you know, it's a big part of the problem. And yes, we're going to lose a lot of businesses, and a lot of them are going to be small businesses. But like you said, I don't want to go back to what we had. I want to make things better. I want to put some things in place that protect people, that some of these inequities that have become so obvious. We are the workers. We're getting this disease at a higher rate because we're the ones out there driving the trucks, driving the buses, in the grocery stores, doing the janitorial cleaning up of areas that need to be cleaned of this virus. It is our people who are out there in those jobs. And that's why we have this disease, a disproportionate rate. And our healthcare system hasn't been able to take care of us. And so we stay home until we're real sick. It's just, I want things to change. I want a better America. I want a better America for everybody, not just the rich.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. We definitely need a better America. There's no doubt about that. Just out of curiosity, and so our listeners can know a little bit about both of your backgrounds. And like I said, there's two different backgrounds. You, Mona, have come out of comedy, and you've done politics. But if both of you would just share with our listeners how you came about your individual careers. And I guess I'll start with Mona first, and then I'll come back to you, Representative Holly. But just share how you got actually involved in comedy and what led you to comedy. And I think we've got another caller coming in as well. But start with there, and I'll see who the other caller is also.
I like your doorbell. It's great because when nobody can visit you at this point, I like that you have virtual visitors, so that's nice.
Yes.
I actually got started into comedy completely by accident. I'm actually a former finance girl. I used to work in New York City on the trading floor, which is a huge jump from that to stand-up comedy. I completely got into accident. The first stand-up comedian I ever saw perform live was Paul Mooney, actually. And I remember sitting all the way in the front, and Paul Mooney was kind enough to share his drinks with me. And I'll never forget that. While everybody was like, Mona, are you out of your mind? You never go to a comedy club and sit all the way in the front. That was the first and the last time I ever sat that up close at a comedy club. Now I just sit all the way in the back. I kind of just fell into stand-up comedy. It was not something that I planned or anything. It's not something that Pakistani Muslim girls grow up doing. Like we are taught to go to school, be a good girl, listen to your parents, marry a stranger, and then pop a bunch of kids out. And I went in the opposite direction. I disappointed my parents by becoming a stand-up comedian. I'm a single girl living in Los Angeles and have a dog as a child. So there's that.
But the stereotype of I'm going to get to you, Miss Holly. The stereotype of Asians is that y'all are all going to be working in like the medical field. So when you told them that you weren't going to be, one, you weren't going to get married, and two, or at least not immediately, and two, you weren't going to be a doctor, I'm sure that they probably were not that thrilled, because I know the stereotype of Asians, particularly those from Pakistan and India, is that y'all are either working in the medical field or in the computer field.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, I'm a failure of both. So I can't fix a computer or I can't perform heart surgery. So there's that. I just get up there and tell jokes on stage. Yeah, I mean I think my family has just come to deal with it, and they're just like, look, she's going to do what she's going to do. And I think with South Asian parents and Malaysian parents is that the moment you show a little success in what you do, then they begin to be a little bit more forgiving, versus if you're just totally failing at it and not making any money at it, then they start to taunt you. But if you start making a little bit of money, start getting a little bit of success, then the parents are the ones to first turn around and be like, you know what, I always knew she was talented. I encouraged her to go do that. It's like, you never encouraged me. As a matter of fact, you told me I was, like, totally going to be a failure at this. And they're like, no, I always knew. You actually got your sense of humor from me. My mom tells me that. She's like, you got funny because of me. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to hang up the phone now. I did not get this from you. You did not give this to me, I assure you. So, okay, that's cool. But, yeah, I mean, it's you just kind of begin, you walk your own. That's the most beautiful thing about America. You get to walk your own path. You get to walk your own path in career. You get to walk your own spiritual path. And I think for me, I feel very, very lucky and fortunate to have that opportunity here.
Definitely, and you're doing a great job. Like I said, you always got me laughing every time I've heard your comedy, whether it's been on the Facebook Live or that the Desi Girls or whatever. So you have done a great job, and I have definitely become a fan. Like I've told you before, I've got a couple of other comedian friends that I've known for a number of years, but I've definitely become a fan of yours. And I remember my brother made that mistake one time. I'd probably tell the story backwards, and he would probably do a better job of telling it. But I do remember, like I mentioned before, Ronnie was a comedian here in the area, and he also was the manager of a comedy club that does no longer exist. As a matter of fact, a year before this whole COVID mess, there was the explosion over there on one of our main streets that destroyed several of our restaurants, and that was the space where the comedy club was. And Miss Holly, if she's visited Durham, may remember that area when Charlie was around that area. I believe it wasn't a Charlie Goodnight, but it was something like that. And Ronnie was the manager of that comedy club. But some friends of my brothers, and actually they're family friends, so they're friends of mine as well, and one of them has since passed on. But they came to a comedy club, and they had just come back from a wedding. So needless to say, they were dressed in tuxedos. And as I recall the story, the comedian that was on stage started lighting into them and trying to play the dozens. But Clee and some of the other guys, these were not exactly football players. I don't think any of them played football as far as I know, but they had football player build. So they were going back and forth. And I think at one point, Clee, the one I'm talking about, the bigger guy, was like, the comedian was basically going back and forth and playing the dozens with him. And I think Clee was like, well, if you want to keep telling them jokes, we can meet outside. And I think after a while, the comedian realized that he didn't need to be trying to take on these guys that were about 6'2" and 200 and something pounds. They later got together for drinks and hung out for a while. But I think that at that point, when he kind of like called him out to the carpet in front of the audience, he was like, "Nah, that's all right. I see that y'all are not the ones to be teasing."
Oh, I hear you. Yeah. So you want to know about what got me into the politics?
Yes, please, Miss Holly.
Okay. Well, I'm a child of the late 60s, early 70s. I was in the first wave of desegregating the schools here, and I was like the first African-American cheerleader in a predominantly white school in the state. And the day after I made cheerleader, the Klan came to the school. And I realized that this wasn't going to be fun for me. I learned the responsibility of the weight of a people on my shoulders because I felt I had to do a good job, or who knows when it would be another young little black girl given that opportunity. And I was raised in a community of political activists, and I understood the power of one, the power that my voice had, the power of the things that I did and how it implemented good and positive change. So as I grew up, and I've always been active in the community in one way or another, when the things started changing in the political arena and I saw things going back, the things that I felt that our community had fought for and not wanted to change in, I decided to step up to the plate because it's not a thing of why me, it's why not me. And because the younger people, we didn't tell them about what was going on in our time, and they don't know how to fight some of these fights. Whereas, I've been through some of it, and I don't mind fighting, and I'm teaching young people every day the things that I learned, and so that they, too, can keep to help make our communities better. I don't want us to go back. In the General Assembly, some of the legislation that we have done has just taken us back 10, 20 years, 50 years even, in some ways. And I want to fight and be part of the rebuilding, not the deconstruction of our community.
So you're doing a great job, and I definitely have appreciated seeing the things that you've been doing both on the representative level, and I'm sure that you'll do a great job as Lieutenant Governor as well. I also want to bring in our next guest as well, and that's Sharon Hill, who is a motivational speaker as well as a Toastmaster. She just actually came back from a Toastmasters meeting, and she's actually been involved with Goodwill and done a number of other things. So one of our guests, Sharon, you'll probably be able to really relate to, because I'm imagining that you probably have to tell at least a couple of jokes where you're on the stage doing Toastmastering and public affairs, and I mean not public affairs, but doing public speaking, because Mona, who I've got as a guest from Los Angeles, is a stand-up comedian who's living in Los Angeles but is originally from Pakistan. So definitely she might have some tips for you as you're doing that public speaking. But tell us a little bit about yourself and the different things that you're involved with.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. It's an honor. I enjoyed our previous I came in, I didn't hear the name of the person speaking before me, Political Action. I want to say thank you for all you're doing. I have my fingers in many, many, many pies, everyone. Right now, I am very much involved with Toastmasters International. I've been an international director for Toastmasters, responsible for setting the strategy for a 350,000-person organization. That was in 2013, 2015. I'm also a certified etiquette trainer. So when I go out to speak, if I'm not speaking motivationally, I'm speaking about etiquette. Just telling people that you're always being judged. And now these days, before all this COVID stuff started, when people want to go interview for jobs, a lot of companies are telling people to, let's meet for lunch, let's meet for dinner. And I must tell them, you're not there to eat. And I do speak at universities, I speak at corporations, just to give the basics of even dining etiquette. There's also, I got to change my whole situation now for handshakes, since that's gone out the window with the COVID, and there we are. I sit on a few boards of directors, and I just stay busy. So I'm a jack of all trades, Mark. Thank you.
No problem. Like you said, you've done a variety of great things and everything. I was wondering, how are you going to teach this new etiquette and this new normal? Because that's one of the things I'm wondering about. I mean, because once we get back to the new normal, I'm imagining, we were talking before we got all you ladies on, me and Dean, about the fact of what is a sporting event going to look like if we've got to seat everybody 3 seats apart from each other. That's going to be like a real, Mona, that's going to be a real interesting look at the forum there in Los Angeles if we got to seat everybody 3 seats apart from each other.
Every apart, yes, indeed. Yeah, and you're right, my whole situation. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mona.
No, please, go ahead.
Well, I was about to say, when Mark said things have changed, the new normal, one of the presentations that I give for either half an hour is the importance of a handshake, how to do handshakes, the importance of them, what they mean. I had to throw that all away and start all over with now, how do we greet each other in business? How do we greet each other socially to still show that I can trust you, which was the handshake. I have to come with a whole new presentation on that. So stand by. I'm standing by on that one. But go ahead, Mona.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, you meet somebody you don't like, all you got to do is cough, and they're not looking to shake your hand anymore.
That's a good, yes. Yes, that's a good one.
I'm sure you meet people, you're like, oh my God, keep that person away from me. So the moment they start approaching you, just start coughing, and they're like, okay, all right, not going to be shaking this person's hand. I think it's a great way to avoid people you don't want in your life. I think it's really great. So I think come Thanksgiving, it's a good idea to be coughing around your relatives you don't want around. You're like, I'm going to be coughing a lot.
But the problem is, if a person's looking for a job, now they're supposed to make a good impression with a handshake. That's out the window. So I'd be careful because I want to impress the person. So that's what I have to deal with now. How do we do that?
Either way. I think it's going to be with eye contact. You're going to have to look people in the eye